everyone, and welcome to the Alizee Yeezy Show. I am your host, Alizee Yeezy, and today I am joined by Rachel Oates
Hi. We got a little Cooby Bear
and
here as well.
Kyra.
You want to say hi, sleepy girl?
Hello, baby.
Oh, you want to say hi? Very, very tired girl, this one. But she's excited to talk about Gilmore Girls, aren't you? Yeah. Big Gilmore Girls fan, this one. She's been rewatching all the episodes with me, haven't you?
Well, how are you first? What have you been up to?
Oh God, I'm doing I've been doing a lot of like big deep dive videos at the minute. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna do a shorter one, something nice and simple. And it's turned into another big deep dive. So I'm looking into the Collins family. I was just gonna
Yeah.
sponsor like 3 of their Instagram posts at first, but the further I dig into it, the more I'm like, there is so much to talk about with this family. It's insane. So
What did they do?
they're another fundy family, but they're mostly big on Instagram, and they have 10 kids.
10.
10. All beginning with
10.
A. Yeah. It was I, I was actually like doing some research into my writing group last night. I was like, okay, I'm gonna read you out the children's names and you guys have to guess the spellings because they're all absolutely ridiculous. Like one of the kids is called Angel, but it's spelled like Aynjel.
Why? Why would you do that? Why do these people hate their
Nice.
children?
Oh, God knows. But it gets worse. So there are like the kids are all mixed race, and the mother Carissa is white, and the father Mandre, he's black. But Carissa makes some really weird comments about race. Like she did this one Instagram post once saying that she's always felt like a black woman inside, which is why she married a black man. And
Oh
then
dear. Oh
yeah, and then
dear.
she goes around like she says that stuff, but then she lightens her children's skin in photographs and makes them look
Really?
whiter than they are. Yeah, it's really messed up.
Oh,
Yeah. Other than that, they're
wow.
pronatalists. So they're completely against abortion. They're completely against birth control. As who'd have thought it with 10 kids? But they also believe that you should have kids and keep having kids no matter what. So recently, and this is what set me off down this rabbit hole, Carissa put out this post saying like we should all have as many kids as possible. So what if your children aren't getting the attention they need? So what if you can't afford to have any more? So what if oh, careful baby. So what if the older kids have to look after the younger ones? So what if you can't educate your kids properly? And it's like,
What do you mean, so what? These are things you should
big
think
things.
about.
Exactly. And she's like, no, no, so what? We just need to keep having more and more kids. And it's
Why?
awful. God knows. But the saddest thing is, she never wanted kids in the first place, she says. And now she's got like 10 of them. She also does this really, really harmful thing of fasting during her pregnancies because she thinks it's what God wants. And she believes she
Oh.
has these like visions, and God literally sends her messages telling her to fast, which sounds funny, but it's led to her miscarrying at least one baby.
No way.
And her
Really?
yeah, so it was either the last kid or the second to last one, but it was born something like 8 weeks premature, I think. And there are a whole bunch of complications and stuff. She got really ill during the childbirth. The kid was obviously born really ill and had to spend a lot of time in the like what is it, the NICU,
I
something like
see.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
The NICU.
natal, yeah, that, yeah. So yeah, it's horrific, and she still insists on fasting while pregnant.
What kind of fasting? Just straight up water, nothing.
Yeah, yeah, no food.
For how long each time?
Days at a time.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That sure is a choice.
yeah. There's also stuff around her homeschooling all her kids, and it's bad. Like her kids have no basic reading and writing skills. Like there's this video she posted a while back of her, I think it's a 14-year-old daughter, maybe 13, and she's reading a children's book to one of the little ones, and this daughter is struggling with basic words. We're talking like 2-syllable words that she is struggling to get out.
At what point? I mean, this is such blatant child abuse, but at what point, like, do these people, are they Instagram? Are they YouTube?
Instagram is the big one.
Then at what, like, point should Meta step in? Because, like,
Yeah. Also
should
Facebook,
I,
I think. Yeah.
should I say it? Should I say it? Yeah, because Instagram's owned by Facebook and it's all Meta, right? But on Facebook, you're not allowed to do quite a lot of stuff, you know? Like once, what did I, my dad like commented on one of my statuses. I don't know what he said, but I said as a joke, I hate all men.
Mm.
You know, just as a joke, because
Yeah.
like literally almost all of my friends are boys, whatever. And I said it to my dad, who, you know, I guess I love very much. And Facebook removed that comment because they said that it was harmful towards communities and I was being prejudiced, and like it was a whole thing. And I thought it was really funny and stuff.
Yeah.
But like there's a lot on Facebook that you will get put in Facebook jail for. And if it owns like Instagram, and again with Instagram, like there's lots of things that you can't actually put on there. A lot of the like a lot of eating disorder accounts got
Mm.
taken down, and they're quite strict with a lot of things. So like
Yeah.
why did they not step in with like, because that's clearly just child abuse, you know? Do you think they homeschool their kids so the kids are more ignorant on purpose?
Mm.
Or do you think they've
Well,
put that much thought into it? Or do you think,
yeah, this is kind of like part of the big debate, isn't it? And this is something I was speaking to my friend Tim about the other day. So Tim is an author. He writes a lot of like nonfiction science books, but he also used to work as a teacher for a really long time. So he's obviously very interested in like education and talking about like kids education and everything. So Tim says there are kind of like boards in place and regulators in place who should be checking in on homeschool kids and making sure they're sticking to an approved curriculum and things like that. And this is true both in America and the UK, but more so in America because it's so big. A lot of kids slip under the radar and are missed
sure.
and forgotten about, and families just get away with it, especially in certain states which are very heavily Mormon.
Mm.
In those ones in particular, so states like Utah, and I can't remember which other ones are like quite heavily Mormon, but in a lot of those states, a lot of homeschooling just goes pretty much unchecked. And there's like a few different examples of homeschool curriculums which are pretty much designed to indoctrinate your kids. So I think we've spoken about this before, but I did the big video on the IBLP's curriculum and how so much of that curriculum is about teaching your kids, hey, sorry, yeah, teaching kids basically like, hey, this is why this religion is right and all others are wrong, and you need to stick with this or you're going to go to hell, and this and this and this and so on. So that one is very much indoctrination. I would argue with cases like the Ruby Frankie situation, which is something else I just did a video on.
Yeah.
With that, Ruby took her kids out of school and started to homeschool them because she wanted to maintain more control over them, because she didn't want teachers and educators and other adults who are looking out for the kids to start seeing those warning signs of abuse. So in that case, I think the homeschooling was less about indoctrination and more about her not wanting to be found out. In this case with the Collinses, it's hard to say. I think it's part indoctrination, part they have massive egos and think they're smart enough to teach all their kids when they're clearly not, and part just ignorance and stupidity, and they're not really thinking it through.
But then these people, they put all this stuff online. They put it on YouTube or they put it on Instagram. So I'm not sure how do they keep getting away with it when it's there and it's public, you know, they're not hiding it.
Yeah. I wish I knew. Because like
Weird.
people have been calling out the Frankies for years of like different things they've done which have been abusive. And the police have been called to them before, but this is the first time they've actually done something. But it took them literally tying up their children to have any consequences. It shouldn't have to get to that point before something is done to help the kids.
It's a bit similar to the whole Anision scenario. People complained about him and his behavior for years, and then he had children, and they've kept the private life quite private. But then there were the police reports about the daughter falling out of the window, and the first thing Greg did was grab a camera to prove he didn't do anything. Like, what are you? And YouTube didn't do anything until the Discovery documentary was made, and then he lost his monetization. YouTube only stepped in when the mainstream started to give a shit, because I guess they didn't want to look bad, even though I shouldn't be biting the hand that feeds us too much. I'm being a bit edgy right now. Susan Wojcicki is going to just like cut off the channel. But yeah, it's annoying. It's annoying that authorities don't really want to do anything until it's kind of too late.
Yeah.
But that seems to be quite a ubiquitous problem, I guess.
it's hard in some cases because like some people I've seen arguing like, oh well, you know, they want to let more evidence be put out there into the world, so they've got like an actual case to arrest these people or charge these people, and like they've got more and more evidence. I'm like, yeah, okay, but in the meantime the kids are suffering.
Yeah.
So like, is that really an excuse? Like, oh, they were waiting for more evidence before they did
Mm.
something. It's like, is that really an excuse? Is that good enough? I don't know. It's hard.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because a lot of people use the excuse of like, oh, like free speech and stuff, like people should be able to post whatever they want. And I'm like, yeah, but does that extend to like not protecting children, if that makes sense? I still don't know if I'm completely on board with like, yeah, free speech for everyone all the time. Like, I don't, and that might
Well,
be a controversial thing to say. I feel like when we talk about free speech, what we should actually be saying is like, yeah, we should all be able to like have the freedom to do things like speak up against the government and contradict the government and that sort of thing. But like free speech doesn't mean you can say and do and publish whatever you want anytime you want, you know? Especially when like that publishing is something like showing you hurting your kids. Like that shouldn't be protected by free speech. I fully believe that shouldn't be allowed on platforms. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to
yeah.
say?
Yeah, and you can't. Does free speech actually really exist anyway? As a concept, maybe, but in the real world, I don't think so. Because if you're in a crowded theater or a crowded room and you yell fire and there's no
Yeah,
fire, you are going to get in trouble for that because you can't cause panic. You can't
yeah,
incite panic and terror in people. You just can't. So does it? Yeah, interesting.
yeah. Well, to be fair, like my understanding of free speech from a legal perspective is that it means things like, you know, you can criticize the government, you can
Yeah,
um it's like basically avoiding a whole like 1984 state kind of thing where like everything is controlled by the government and you need to stick to this agenda and stuff like that. Free speech means you can have like opposing political parties and stuff like that.
yeah.
Free speech doesn't mean you can just go around causing panic, calling people names, lying about people, publishing false information, all that sort of thing. So it's interesting, you know. I
Yeah,
feel like
criticizing the government should be it should be a right. If it should
and
be,
you know,
you
yeah.
should just do it automatically anyway. I don't know why. I don't know about the viewers. I'm sick of our government, but that's another story for another time.
Well, of course you're sicker than the Tories.
I'm sick of all of them. But that's quite reductive. You can't just be like, oh, all politicians are bad because I'm sure a lot of politicians are actually fine and do want to try to do their best, but there's so much gatekeeping. Because when I was younger, I really did think it's all a big conspiracy
Mm.
and, like everyone's in on it. But then, if you actually go and experience the world, it's not that's not true, you
Mm.
know? Um, like I'm sure there's a bunch of, well, I like Ed Miliband, he
Yeah.
tries his best. I love Ed Miliband. I've always loved Ed Miliband. I've always been his number one. I was gutted when he didn't win. I was so upset. I was in tears, pal, when he didn't win against David Cameron. God, even looking back to like the David Cameron, George Osborne days, it was shit then, and yet there's rose tinted glasses because it was shit, but it wasn't as shit and as bleak as this. I was thinking this today. I had quite a nice morning, I did a podcast with Angelina, I went to boxing, did my exercise, I was in a good mood. Then I was walking back through my town
Mm.
and I noticed like, oh, that store's closing down now. It's got like
Yeah.
everything going. Oh, the Wilkinsons has closed down.
Oh God, yeah,
Wilco's gone. Like
Wilco's. Oh, I'm very sad
every,
about that.
I know everything's just. Yeah, I feel really sad. I feel quite sad about it too because well, going to Wilco's quite frequently and
Yeah,
like you
great for
get to
dog
know the
treats, and you
staff.
can take dogs in. It's brilliant.
Yeah. But I just, everything's grey today and everything is closing down. And it made me feel really depressed because it's like, how much further can people be pushed until enough is enough?
Well, this is exactly what happened with Thatcher in the 80s and going into the 90s when they
Mm,
absolutely screwed over the economy, especially working class people, you know? I mean, like we've spoken about this before, but like as a pretty much direct result of all of that, a lot of the factories in Penistone where I'm from shut down, and that's how my dad got made redundant. And
mm,
how like from the mid 90s onwards, he wasn't able to find a job
mm,
because like once Thatcher and the Tories had absolutely screwed over the working classes, especially in the north, where we had such a like kind of heavy industry based like economy. All the working class people are screwed over. So people like my dad, who left school at 15 with no qualifications and had only ever done factory work since they were 15, and suddenly there's no more factories, or there's like one factory left in Penistone, and so everyone was trying to get jobs there. Like, what are they supposed to do? Men like that with no qualifications, no other work experience, and no one wants to hire. Like, at that point he was in his 50s, I want to say. Like, who wants to hire a man in their 50s with no qualifications and no relevant work experience? It just kind of screwed everyone over. And I feel like maybe we're not quite in that same place now, because I'd say, like, especially up north, everything's a lot more versatile. There's a lot more industries, and it's a little, just generally, the workspace is a bit more diverse now. But I still think it's screwing people over, and especially working class people and small business owners as well, which I don't know if you could call them working class, but like small business owners are suffering, especially in the north. I can't tell you how many like small bars and stuff in Leeds have shut down or are closing down. Like, one of my favorite bars here, I was speaking to someone who worked there the other day, and they're like, oh yeah, we're like weeks away from shutting down. I was like, what?
It's bleak. It's a dystopian hellhole, this crappy little country.
Yeah.
Not to, what's the opposite of nationalism? Hating the country.
I don't know, what's the opposite of nationalism? I Google that. This is just telling me internationalism.
Globalism. No, not the damn globalists.
Yeah, this is just like internationalism. Internationalism is the doctrine that nations should cooperate because their common interests are more important than their differences. I mean, I agree with that.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. The opposite of nationalism is multiculturalism. Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. The opposite of loving your country, hating your country. It's all just bleak. So feels like TV is the only escape one has at the moment. And actually, I'm quite ashamed of this. I've been watching Big Bang Theory, but then in turn, I've been watching Young Sheldon, and Young Sheldon is a superior show, easily.
It is, in every way.
It's so comforting.
It's up there as like one of my comfort watches. I really like it. I think the cast is brilliant. To say they have child actors, they're surprisingly not annoying.
I know, that never happens.
Yeah. Crazy, isn't it? Missy is a little star. I think she's gonna grow up to go really far. She's great. Yeah, I really like it. I think as far as comedies go, it is probably one of the best.
Yeah, I think Young Sheldon, it's got so much heart. And it's funny though, because I remember when it was first advertised as, Sheldon's gonna get a prequel show, and everyone online took the piss out of it. They were like, who asked for this? And I agreed with that, because like it's funny because I'm watching Big Bang Theory and I'm on season 7, but I've had the stigma against Big Bang Theory too, if you remove the laugh track, is it funny? Some of it is actually. Like, I have been watching it, and I do enjoy some bits. I like Sheldon and Penny the best. But what's funny though is anytime Sheldon is being Sheldon, my boyfriend turns to me and he goes, "That's you." Like, he's convinced that I am basically Sheldon. And do you know what? I've been watching it and I've been like, Sheldon's actually very relatable. And I wonder what this is saying about me. I do find him, like, not all the time, obviously, but I do find him more relatable as I've gotten older, because I'm always being like, the social convention here is to do this, but I don't want to. I don't really understand people anymore.
He is a little bit stuck in his ways, but on the whole, like, he does make some logical points every so often, which isn't too bad.
Yeah.
This is so silly, but like one of the scenes that sticks with me from the Big Bang Theory that I do genuinely like is when Sheldon and Penny are playing that game with each other where they hold up their little placards, and like with Sheldon, he holds up science ones, and Penny holds up like celebrities, and like Sheldon's going through them, he's guessing, he's like, Kardashian, and she's like, which one? And he's like, because they just all look the same. Oh, it's great. But
yeah,
I prefer
the Penny and Sheldon friendship is the best part of Big Bang Theory, easily.
It is nice. It's wholesome, it's sweet, like they genuinely care about each other. It's nice to just see a completely platonic friendship on TV.
Yes, and
Nice.
there's no second guessing. There's no, do they actually like each other? No, like
Yeah.
Penny is almost like Missy for him, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. They are very similar, aren't they?
And I was quite surprised actually, because I've never sat and watched the entirety of Big Bang Theory. So that's what I am doing at the moment. The episodes are only 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I'm on season 7, but like I never liked Howard when it used to be on TV, and you know, because Howard, he'd always be so creepy. So I never really liked him.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm at season 7, so I don't know if it changes for the worse later on. But I'm surprised that like he is the character I think that has grown the most, because when he gets married to Bernadette, he stops being a creep. He stops being like a weirdo to women, and he goes to space. I think he actually turns out decently. And do you know what's funny though? I can't forgive the haircut that they gave Howard, that helmet head. I can't forgive it, right? So I was curious the other day. I was just like, I wonder what the actor actually looks like. Have you seen what he actually looks like when he's not got that mental haircut?
No, don't say he's hot.
I wouldn't say hot because he's not my type, but he looks so much better. He has a bit of stubble. He has like a different haircut. He looks really different, and it's amazing. Just like how much difference does a haircut make? It's all right, doesn't he?
It does. I'm very confused.
They done him so dirty on the Big Bang Theory. He had to have that haircut every season. I think they've done him so dirty. He looks so much better.
I feel very confused right now.
Right?
So weird. Oh God. Wow. Oh. Well done to the costume department.
Oh, I saw Raj once.
Really?
Yeah, I was on a media trip in LA for my college, and we went around, like we had the Universal and Warner Brothers tours and that kind of thing. So you got to see like the sets, and I think we saw like, I don't know, I don't think we ever saw the Gilmore Girls sets. I think it was like Pretty Little Liars, but it was like they use similar, you know, they just swap it around a little bit. And then we saw Raj, because the guy who plays Cooper Parley, he came in on his like in his car and he waved at us. And I was like, oh, that's that guy. And then we saw Adam Sandler as well, actually, and all the girls in my class like freaked out, and they were like trying to go, because you're told like these people, they're just working, like don't bother them basically. But a lot of the girls, like I think some of them got a picture of him because it was Adam Sandler and they were freaking out. But I'd like just met Skrillex the night before, so I couldn't give less of a shit.
I feel like it's weird because like Raj is the character where like out of them all, he's probably the most conventionally attractive, but he's the creepiest one of the lot. And he's like the one character who I think gets worse throughout the series because he never stops being creepy. And in a lot of ways, he just gets creepier.
I can see that. Like I said, I'm only at season 7, but I can definitely see that, because at this point he's gotten over his shyness and talking, his selective mutism. But he's still, he is still creepy.
Yeah.
Whereas Howard has like loads of character development. I mean, Sheldon has a lot of character development too, you know, and so does Penny.
Yeah.
I don't like Leonard.
Leonard I liked in the earlier seasons, and then just
yeah.
I hate how like he starts like he's such a little man child. He can't deal with the fact that Penny becomes more successful than him and earns more money than him and is like absolutely thriving in her career. And then just as she's like getting everything she wants, all of a sudden he's like, okay, now let's have a baby. Let's do this. And she's like, no, I don't want a baby. And he's like, but we need to have a baby. I'm like, oh, stop it.
You don't need to have a baby. You are a baby, you big man child.
Also, do you know how the series ends?
Penny gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And Sheldon gets a Peace Prize. Not Peace Prize, he gets a Science
Nobel Prize.
Yeah. Nobel Prize, yeah.
Yeah. Him and Amy, which is nice.
Yeah.
But, yeah, making Penny pregnant in the last episode when she has been so adamant that she does not want to have a baby. I was furious. It kind of made me like hate the entire series a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
I can
like,
imagine
all of this just to like ruin her character and future.
Yeah, I don't like it when they do that either, because a woman can't possibly be complete unless she has a little kid that she never wanted, but suddenly she does want because, oh, it's your kid. Like, big whoop. Yeah. So what? You're still gonna like not sleep for the next 3 years. Have fun. Like, goodbye to your career as well.
Yeah. Like, well, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? Like, you were saying about like surrogates and stuff, and like
There's a specific term for it because surrogacy in the UK, it has to be altruistically done. It can't be for financial gain, but in the US it's different. So a woman can, because I'm on the side of, because like there are some women who are like, oh, it's anti-feminist because you shouldn't be renting out your body parts, but I'm on the side of her body, her choice. If someone wants to rent their womb out and get 100 grand for it in the US, which like some people can, some people, probably depends on the area. Like if you're in LA or whatever, you can, because there are movie stars who won't want to take the time off work getting pregnant.
Yeah.
So they will have a surrogate. I think there's also people who like, because Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, they had another kid through a surrogate, but I think maybe like
for
Kim,
health reasons.
Yeah, she
couldn't physically carry another pregnancy.
Yeah. And Sarah Jessica Parker, she says it's for health reasons, which like I've got no reason to not believe her. I don't know her, but other people have said, oh, like what load of rubbish, she just did it because she wanted to keep working, whatever.
Well, what's wrong with that?
I am on the side of like, your body, your choice.
Yeah.
Like that has to extend to if you want to, because
men...
you don't see people giving men grief for like selling their sperm. But suddenly if a woman wants to rent her womb out for 9 months, like she gets, because there's a lot of ire about this online. There's a lot of like back and forth,
But like men have the option to not give up work when they have a kid. They have the option to work right up until the day the baby is born and then go back to work the minute after if they want to. Paternity leave is a thing and it's important that it's offered. But even some men who are offered it don't take the full time because they don't want to get behind in their careers and things like that. Why can't women have that option as well? Just because we're the ones who can get pregnant doesn't mean we should. Plenty of people want both the career and to work, so why shouldn't they be able to essentially outsource one of those tasks? Sorry, they want the career and a baby, so why shouldn't they be able to outsource one of those things?
Yeah, I think like
it, why not?
I think ultimately, because there are going to be people who are in disadvantaged situations who are going to maybe go down the route of surrogacy if they're healthy enough. And then it's like, then you get into a bit of a class issue of, are they being exploited because of their economic situation? Because like maybe they don't. I think there's a case by case like basis and scenario for it. I saw like, because there were women on Mumsnet arguing about this stuff, and like they were getting really Mumsnetty about it. And I thought, well, I don't think you should demonize people for like using surrogates. There's certainly a case by case for it. It's not like a cut and dry. It's a complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah.
And if people aren't like, as long as people aren't getting exploited and they are willingly, because like I said, in the UK, it has to be altruistic. It's not you get expenses, but that's it. So like, if someone altruistically wants to rent their womb out, why not? Do you know? Yeah. Whatever. Should we get on with Gilmore Girls?
Yeah, why not? How many minutes are we?
I don't know, but we just put the world to rights. Okay, so this episode, it's called The Deer Hunters, and it's season 1, episode 4, and it's about, oh no, Rory gets a D, and then she misses her test because she oversleeps, because even though she's Rory and she's always prepared, she doesn't set an alarm, and then Lorelai has a shit fit, and then whatever. I feel like everyone in this episode was wrong, but I give you the floor.
Okay, well, first up, my biggest issue with this episode is just a complaint about the American education system. But we can get to that in a minute because I have a lot to say. But also, I feel like, Rory was wrong, but I did quite like Lorelai sticking up for her at the end. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. First, my first question that I have is, and it's about the opening scene. How is yellow paper more serious than purple? Tell me how that makes sense.
Isn't that quite an American-centric thing? Like they have the legal pads that are yellow or something. Is really that just like an American thing? Are we ignorant? Oh no, we're ignorant of America's massive culture. It's a country of like 330 billion people.
Paper isn't serious. How is that more serious than purple? They're both fun-colored paper. Get something white if you want to be serious. No, it annoyed me a bit. I was like, stop being a little snob, Rory.
Oh, she is a snob. We expect that by now, though.
Yeah. Okay, but this is my time for a rant about the American education education system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole episode seems to revolve around this English literature test, right? And it's on Shakespeare. I would seriously love to see Rory's exam paper, because the things she's memorizing are not like something you actually study in English lit in the UK. It's like she has to do multiple choice questions that are like, what year was this play written in? What year was this play written in? Finish the name of this play and stuff like that. Where was Shakespeare born? I'm like, I'm sorry, but that is not teaching them anything. That's like a memorization test. And then Rory's got this big binder of facts like this to learn. And I'm like, that's stupid. So, with all this in mind, I looked up some American exam papers to compare to like what we had to do and stuff. Because how old is Rory in this episode? Is she like 16?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So she's like 16. So what she's doing is like the equivalent of our GCSEs, right? It seems that like Rory's class test is all just like, oh, remember these facts and which, it makes sense now why she's struggling in a new school, because I was like, surely the curriculums can't be that difficult. Once you've learned how to analyze a text, even if you're given a new one, you can apply the same techniques. But no, that's not what she's being taught. She's like had to memorize a bunch of random useless facts, and now she's having to memorize another bunch of random useless facts. Of course, it's going to be difficult for her. So then they also mentioned the SAT exams, and I was like, well, what is an SAT exam? Because that's not something we have to do. Turns out American SAT exams that they have to do at 18 years old are like what we have to do in year 9 when we're like, what?
When we do the stats.
Yeah.
Because we do stats in year 9.
Yeah. These are like the exams we take at 13, 14. It's like,
really?
Yeah, it's like, read this passage and like, what is being said here? And then like it's just basic comprehension. You have to be like, oh, well, this is what's being said, like, and summarize it and then pick the lines that show what it means. And then the next passage is like, you have to correct the grammar in a bunch of sentences. So like this one example here, it's like, you fix the word. It's like, Indigenous peoples living in what was then the US territory of Alaska was subject to pervasive discrimination. And then the was is underlined, and you have to say like, no change it to is, change it to has been, or change it to were. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Or sometimes you have to like pick the correct like definition of a word. And they're like quite basic words. And then their math stuff is like the equivalent of kind of like year 9 / foundation GCSE maths. It's like basic algebra, like oh god, and again it's all multiple choice, or like this, which is just basic Pythagoras. So it shows 2 triangles. It's like, in the figure shown, right triangle ABC is similar to right triangle EDC, where angle ACB is congruent to angle ECD, and AE equals 15. What's the length of line CE? Basic Pythagoras. Bearing in mind the numbers to this are like 6, 3, 15. And it's just A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
C squared, yeah.
That's all you have to do. And this is their like 18-year-old stuff. So we're doing this at like 14. So then I remembered some comments that people told me. They were like, oh yeah, but we have like AP exams that like the advanced students can take, and they're like a little more difficult. They're like way more advanced. And so I looked it up, and people actually get some college credits for these. And it's again, these are like the equivalent to our basic GCSEs.
Oh.
So the ones that we do at like 15, 16. So this is an AP English literature exam that's in Alice Carey's poem Autumn. The speaker contemplates the onset of autumn. Read the poem carefully, then in a well-written essay, analyze how Carey uses literary elements and techniques to convey the speaker's complex response to the changing seasons. That's our GCSE exams. A-level exams are like an essay like that, but then you have to compare like 2 big texts, often from memory. So we did things like, we compared the Duchess of Malfi with like 30 poems of John Donne's, and we had to like memorize all these key quotes from all of them. And then there were like a bunch of different essay topics and things that could have come up. And I think I chose to do one on like the representations of women in terms of like It's something to do with like power structures and stuff like that. It's like women and power, comparing between the two plays. And then not only do you have to do a literary analysis from memory, but you also have to bring in like pretty advanced academic literary theory. So be like, this theorist says this, and this theorist says this, but in this play it's shown like this, but in these poems it's shown like this. And then comparing the context of the time, because it was written in this year, and then this was happening, and this and this and this. And it's like way more complicated. And that's what we have to do at 18. This is what their advanced kids do at 18. And it's what we were doing at like 15, 16. Sorry. Point is, Americans have it easy. Rory has nothing to complain about.
That is a very bold declaration to make on a channel that is mainly American audience based. That's on you. I'm neither agreeing nor disagreeing because, well, to be honest, I don't really know, like, I guess as much as you've looked into it about the American education system, because I don't know. I always thought that Americans had to do stuff that, when I say we, I'm now just thinking it was probably just like my school. When they talk about like trigonometry and calculus, you know, all those different mathematical terms.
We do that.
I didn't learn that.
Oh no, it's just all encompassed in maths.
Oh,
yeah.
So I did learn it. I used to nap in my maths class though.
Well, trigonometry is just stuff with triangles. Yeah. So it's your like you know, the whole like cis, cos, tan, all that sort of thing. A little bit.
I know those are buttons on a calculator.
Yeah. Basically, they're values that you can pump into like a calculator or something like that, or you can use tables to figure it out, that will help you calculate things like angles on different kinds of triangles if you know certain lengths of sides and stuff like that. It's basic formulas. It's easy stuff. You will have done it.
I did used to sleep in maths a lot. A few times I brought in alcohol to maths. Drinking problems are funny, but no. I did that a few times, and it was awful too. It was there was this alcohol called Aftershock. Did you ever have that?
Oh my god, yeah,
like
the Alizee one. Yeah,
so disgusting. So I had some and I mixed it in with like my Diet Coke, and I brought it into class.
It was always my choice of shot at the copper rooms at uni.
No. The teacher was like, "What's that smell? Smells like medicine." And me and my friend were laughing. So it was just me drinking. To be fair, I only did that a few times. I don't think I ever went to school high. I went to college high. But yeah, I just like got drunk a few times at school because I don't care.
I was a proper little nerd in school. I was.
Well, I wish I had been. So then, like, you know, I wouldn't have to repeat my fucking A levels now. Drugs aren't cool. They kind of are. That I'm joking. I'm not gonna lie, like they're kind of fun, like they're fun until it stops being fun. Anyway.
So actually I don't know what calculus refers to specifically. I'll look it up here. Okay. The calculation of instantaneous rates of change, differential calculus, and the summation of infinitely many small factors. Oh my god, yeah. So we did calculus as well. Calculus might have been a little bit like more towards A level for some people, I think. But we definitely did some bits of calculus. Algebra, you definitely did algebra. Basically, think of anything to do with substituting values with letters and graphs and stuff like that. What else do Americans do?
I don't know. I was never very good at fractions. And that's so babyish. But I was always just like, I don't get it. What's the point? Which I wish I hadn't like have taken that. I might. There's a website where you can relearn how to do maths, and I'm considering doing it, but I am trying to juggle 2 A levels and learning Japanese and French, like attempting. So I don't know, but you know, because maths is important. It's important for science.
Yeah. I think I'd quite like to go back and do A-level maths now that I'm a bit older, and I have been considering looking into it, but I'm like, is it going to be weird if I go back and I'm like, hi, I'd like to do an A-level in maths. I already have a BSc.
No, you should do
science.
You should do an open study A-level like I'm doing, so you can just do it at home. It's fine. Like, and they don't ask about your personal life. They don't care. It's like at home learning. You should do that.
Because there's some bits of maths, like especially I think it's mostly the calculus bits that I never had anyone teach me. I always had to like pick them up by myself when I was at uni, because I needed them for like stats courses and like when I was doing biomed and stuff like that, and like they were useful for that, but I just had to teach myself, and like part of me is like, I actually really want to go back and like learn that stuff, because as much as I hated my maths lessons in school because I didn't like my teachers, I actually quite enjoy maths. And like there's something very satisfying about especially algebra with like things like balancing equations and figuring things out and figuring like, oh well, if you have these values then this must mean this and this, and like I find that very satisfying. I like that a lot. But I don't know
Like
if
Sheldon Cooper. You should do
none
your
of that.
you should do your A level math, and I'll do GCSE, because you can do open study and you can retake, because I looked
Yeah,
at because we never at my school we never learned economics, we never had like a lesson for that,
we
and I've
didn't
seen
know.
that like you can do like GCSE economics, and GCSEs take less than a year. I mean, you could probably
Yeah.
fast track it in 6 months if you like put your head down and did it. So
Well,
I've been considering doing all these things.
I did my GCSE French when I was like, I took most of the exams when I was still 14.
Hmm.
So anyone can do it. Like
Yeah.
GCSEs are pre. You got this. Like,
Yeah. Let's get back to the episode,
sorry.
because
Yeah. Anyway,
I'm
Rory, what a bitch.
yes, Rory,
I don't mean it.
awful.
I Oh God, what is this? I had just having in my notes risotto gate.
That's with
Oh
Suki, and it's so annoying. No,
yeah,
like that frustrates me, that because
yeah.
it's my craft. You've got a glowing review. Okay, like maybe he
Mhm.
didn't fancy the risotto so much. That's okay. Like not everyone likes risotto. And like it gets reframed when Jackson comes in. Suki makes this meal for this restaurant critic. The critic gives a glowing review, but he says, like, whilst the risotto was fine, and Suki takes issue with this because she's like, it's a magical risotto because it saved my mum's life or some rubbish, right? And Lorelai's talking to Jackson, and he's like, oh, what's wrong with Suki? And she's like, oh, a reviewer didn't like the risotto. And he's like, you're kidding, the magic risotto? He never said he didn't like it. He said it was fine. That does not, saying something's fine does not equal disliking,
Yeah.
and it gets blown out of proportion. And then she ends up like stalking the restaurant critic, going to his
Yeah.
house to give him the risotto. And
That's
just
so
that,
entitled. An
and that
invasion of
it's
privacy.
so annoying. I always found that so annoying. Like I didn't find it quirky.
Imagine if Colleen Hoover turned up at your front door tomorrow and shoved a book in your face and didn't leave until you'd read it all and given it a good review.
She could try, but I am stronger than her in every single way. No,
You're just
but
like,
yeah, it's the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's just there are bad reviews out there, and it's okay to be upset about them, but you can't try and change these people's minds.
yeah.
Have a little bit of time wallowing, have a little cry if you need to. If it's a bad review, just be like, oh, and then work on being better. Why did she not think there's an issue with her recipe? Why did she have to be like, it must be someone else's fault, and then like harassing the waiters to see like what wine they brought her and stuff? Like, oh,
Because she's up her own butt. And it wasn't even but that's the thing, it was not a bad review. It was
no,
the
it
critic
was a
loved
fine
all the
review.
food. It was a fine review. And just like the weird the weird entitlement of these people, like if people aren't constantly licking their bums, they're just not anything below that, they're not happy with, because
Yeah.
we see that also. I guess it's a bit parallel to Rory gets a D, and oh, it's the first time she's ever got a D,
Yeah.
and oh my god, she must feel terrible about it. And sure, I get it. I mean, if you're like a straight A or an A student and then you get a D, but at the same time, she's joined the school year halfway through. It was going to be a bit shaky. She still ends up being one of the best students that comes out of the school at the end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be a bit shaky. And if there wasn't like the kind of Lorelai's reaction to it, I imagine that if you're already someone who puts yourself under a lot of pressure, having people make like such a big deal of, oh my gosh, she got a D, that would ultimately make you worse long term,
Yeah.
I think, because it's okay to get a D sometimes. Like it's not
It
it's
is
not the end of
okay
the
to
world.
fail
Like
at stuff.
a a an interviewer for a job is not going to turn around and go, remember that time in year 10 when you got a B on this paper?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter,
No one cares. Like for all I've been good in school and stuff, I failed exams. I failed my financial accountancy exam with 13% because it was a bitch of an exam. Basically,
Mm.
you go into the exam, they give you like 5 pages of just numbers and financial statements. Sorry, not even financial statements, just like transactions and stuff like that, and like lists of assets. And they say, okay, prepare this, this, and this financial statement. And you're like, oh, okay. So if you mess up one number near the beginning, throws all your other calculations off. And that's
Wow.
like 13%. And that's what I did. I messed up one number early on and it threw everything else off.
I failed my philosophy A level in the first year.
Really?
Yeah, I went into the exam and I was high.
Oh.
And I
Something
had
different.
I had the brilliant idea that day of, I don't want to talk about God. I know we've been revising this all year, but I don't care. I'm going to answer this question instead, like about something totally unrelated. Yeah, I really didn't try with
Yeah.
that one. So trying not to repeat that now,
Yeah.
but
It's just like it's a learning thing. And like
yeah.
what failing that exam, I mean, I resat the exam and everything, but what failing that exam taught me was that I need to recheck my work and not panic. Because like
Mhm.
one tiny mistake early on screws up your whole thing. So now when I actually have to do my own financial statements for real, I'm a lot more careful with it. I didn't
Mm.
take that as like, oh my God, I'm a failure and my life is over. It was like, oh, well, now I know I can make these mistakes. Well, let's not do it in real life. And it's part of learning.
Yeah. It is part of learning. And if you fail an exam, you can resit exams. You
Yeah.
know, like even if I don't know about university, but even if you're at college, you will have to pay to retake them, but you can.
Some university courses make you pay, some don't. So I
Mm.
think for me, because I had a lot of health stuff going on as well, they just let me resit for free. But I know
Oh,
a
that's
couple of
good.
people, they did have to pay it. It wasn't that much. It was like 20 quid an exam or 50 quid an exam, depending on
That's
which one it
fine.
was.
That's
Yeah,
fine. That's all right.
really not bad
Yeah.
at all. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. Um, but yeah, what I did like was Lorelai in the scene with the parents, and the like PTA meeting sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Lorelai's the only one who's like, you are giving these kids too much homework, and then there's all the snobby parents being like, "Ugh, a scholarship kid," and I was like, "Ooh, parents like that, I hate them." So I kind of
Mm.
love Lorelai in that scene.
Yeah. I liked it when she knocked into the globe and she said, "What in the world?" And then no one laughed. I'm sorry. If I saw someone do that, I'd be in stitches. I'd be like,
It was
that's some
funny.
quick wit there.
I do like that. But have you ever met people like those parents, as like rich snobby parents?
uh Not when I was growing well, no, actually, there was a bit of a divide in the town that I grew up in.
Mm.
Because you did have like the richer parts, the more affluent part, and then you had like the part that I lived closer to where there were like I lived in like this okay little area, and then my friend only lives like less than 10 minutes up the road, but she lived next door to a crack house that was always getting raided. Like, and this is I didn't grow up in London. I grew up like
Yeah.
in a countryside area down in the southwest, because people from London will always be like, "Oh, southwest, yeah, nice, posh." It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, not really. Though we did have that, so I guess like there were some snobby parents, but I guess I didn't really interact with any of them.
Yeah.
They weren't
That's
in my like, yeah,
We had this guy in my first year of uni who was, you've seen the like gap year like
yes,
meme, and that guy, he was exactly him, but for real. He was
mm.
this posh kid who was always talking like, oh, well, on my gap year, I live in Guildford, and after my gap year, then I came to Warwick, and he was like proper like stuck up.
Okay, that's
And
so
it was,
funny that you just said that because like gap year people and like the posher people
mm,
live in Guildford.
I know.
No, they do. It's a
Like,
whole thing.
this wasn't a joke. He was genuinely from Guildford.
Because it's a yeah, I know. Because Guildford is a fucking expensive little town. It's well
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. So,
Nice though, but it's expensive.
but like the thing is, like he was going on about how his private school education was like so much better than mine, and he was like so much more
That's so
experienced. His
rude.
gap year, and yeah, I know. So
Mm,
Warwick did this thing. It was like trying to like diversify a bit because Warwick has a lot of international students, which means a lot of rich kids.
mm.
So they wanted a little bit more diversity. So they offered this bursary for students whose parents earned less than £25,000 a year. My parents earned 9,000 at this point.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
Damn.
rough. So I
Mm,
qualified, and it was like you needed to earn under this amount. and have grades above a certain amount. I think it was something like A star and 2 A's or something like that. Or maybe they wanted 2 A stars and an A. I don't know. It was just like a little higher than their normal entry requirements. So you had to do that and the income. And it was just a little like, we want smart kids from low income backgrounds. We want to give you an incentive to come to uni and this sort of thing and like come to a good uni. I was like, great. So I applied for that. I got it. It wasn't a huge amount. They gave me like 1,500 quid a year, I think. It was nice. And it was like, God, this is really helping me. For the first time in my life, I don't have to work constantly while I'm studying because I've got this little bit of money like helping me out. So this guy in my year, he was like, but it's so not fair. You just get like free money. On my gap year, like my parents paid for stuff, but occasionally I still had to like do a shift in a bar and like, for a little bit of extra money, like, and you just come here and get free money. I'm like, anyway, because I was like working 2 jobs before uni, so I was like, mate, we have had very different last years. So he was like going on and on about this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't need this bursary money. It's like, of course I do. You get a maintenance grant as well. I only get a maintenance loan. I was like, yeah, but how much money do your parents give you a week? And he's like, not even that much. They only give me £400 a week. I was like, see? And he goes, how much do yours give you? I was like, nothing. My parents don't have money to give me. And he was like, oh. I'm like, yeah. That's why I get the grant and the bursary, because that replaces the money that you get from your parents that I don't get from anywhere else. And he was like, oh, well, my education was still better than yours. I was like, was it, mate? Because at the end of the day, I got better grades than you, and we're still at the same university, on the same course, living in the same house.
It was quite sad. When I was living in London, my last job that I had before I quit to go YouTube full time, and I was working for like a few years at this place. And for the first few years, I was doing 6 days a week, like half days on Saturdays and stuff. And I don't think that I made £400 a week. It's a bit sad, isn't it? And this person was just getting that for being at uni. That's outrageous.
I know.
Wow.
People, rich kids.
That's so funny that you're all the way up north, and yet like this bloke went to Guildford, because I know exactly what you mean. Lovely, don't get me wrong. Sorry, lovely, but yes, quite affluent. I have 15 minutes until I have to go for a singing lesson, actually.
Oh, nice.
So
okay, so we've rambled a lot in this. My next note just says the headmaster is such a little bitch.
Yeah, I thought he was wrong too. The whole like rules are rules, everything's inflexible. Sure, but they will say it's to prepare you for the real world, but in the real world, accidents happen. Sometimes people are late. Sometimes shit happens. That's reality. And like I don't know. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I personally don't know a single job where if you were late once, you would get fired.
Exactly.
I don't know that, because that's just not realistic.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like what's interesting is, like, as the series goes on, you can kind of criticize Lorelai's parenting a bit more as she gets more and more immature. But in these first 3 episodes of the first series, she's a really good mum. Like, she's the only one who listens to Rory when she says she was hit by a deer. Everyone else is like, what do you mean you hit a deer? And Lorelai's the only one who says, oh my God, a deer hit you. She's like the only one who hears her, and it's quite a nice little moment to show that she actually does listen and she's trying. And she might be like being a little bit entitled like Rory too, but I kind of do understand her little meltdown and her little rant, so I didn't mind that.
And I didn't, the bit where like Rory melts down in the class. I don't mind the part where she yells at Paris and Tristan because they are being awful, and I think that's fine. It's understandable, and actually, it's very teenage like of her to explode at these two people who are just bullying her. That's fine. I think Max. What do you think of Max?
I don't remember what I thought of Max on my first watch, so this is all kind of like me experiencing him for the first time, and I like him in this episode. I really liked him. He was strict but still flexible. He did his job. He didn't really show favorites, but he was sweet and he was nice, and I liked that.
I think
You disagree?
Well, when I used to watch the show when I was younger, I always quite liked Max. I think I just fancied him a little bit, to be honest.
Man, he's no
I
Luke,
never,
but
I never like, I never, I guess, liked it that they didn't work out and that Lorelai kind of jilted him. That we'll get to it later on. Spoiler alert. But like when I rewatch it, it is quite inappropriate that this bloke is at this well-paying job at this prestigious school, and he's already quite familiar with Lorelai, like not calling her Mrs. Gilmore, but being like, Lorelai, it's okay, and doesn't he like uh ring Rory? Is that this episode? Or am I misremembering it? Doesn't he ring the house and say something about it might be an episode
yeah,
later
no,
on?
he leaves a
A
voicemail at
voicemail.
the end of the episode. Yeah, okay, yeah. But I kind of felt like that was a teacher thing to do, like calling home to tell them about the test. So I didn't mind that so much.
Yeah, but he did want to get on Lorelai's good side because he fancies her immediately. And it's like, sure, shit happens. Like humans are humans. But you're at work. Stop it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think as it goes on, I get kind of mixed feelings towards Max, especially when he and Lorelai argue. So he's like, let's get married. Like a fool. That happens later on and stuff. I still think, yeah, he is kind of sweet. But Rory getting a D, maybe he should have like told her to wait after class before giving her that paper, especially as like Paris notices and then kind of weaponizes it against her because
Maybe.
like
I guess,
he's very aware of the fact that Paris is a bully.
yeah, but I also feel like he didn't really know Rory at this point. She's still so new to the school. He didn't know how she was going to react. He didn't know if that was a normal grade for her. Like he didn't know if she'd be upset by it or not. So like I can't blame him for that.
That'd be crazy if she got into Chiltern, but a D was a normal grade for her. That'd be crazy.
She, like cheated on the tests. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like
Yeah.
to begin with, the character had like quite good potential and good intentions, and then it does go kind of a bit downhill as the season progresses, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. I'm still trying to be like giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna respect him as the episodes unfold rather than like trying to think ahead because I don't know if I'm getting him mixed up with other men. So I'm gonna gonna be fair, I think. Yeah, this episode needed more Luke though. That's my big criticism. Needs more Luke.
There always needs more Luke.
I know.
I was thinking when he gives Rory the pie, I bet he's given her like loads of food for free over the years.
Oh yeah. Well, there's like a thing, like he goes on a little rant later on in the series to Christopher about like how he's always been the one there for Rory, and like he's the one who did all these things for her, like helped her out when she got chicken pox and like looked after her and gave her food while she was studying and helped her move her bed in and out and into a dorm room and all that sort of thing, and like how Luke's basically been like there for her like a father. So yeah, he's definitely given her like a bunch of free food and stuff. It's sweet, I think.
I saw someone say once on Reddit that the Gilmore Girls is basically
There we go.
The Gilmore Girls is basically what if you were the prettiest girl in your town, like the prettiest girls, you know, because they just get like Lorelai and Rory really get to do what they want all of the time, which I think is also a bit why Lorelai does kind of explode at Charleston being so inflexible, because even though it's early on, I have the bias of having hindsight and also the foresight of knowing where the series goes. Yeah. So we know that like they are quite entitled people because they get given everything. And if you were new to the show, by episode 4, you wouldn't be able to deduce that's what's going on. But because I know all of that other context, it's like, yeah, them being told no, you were late, rules are rules, you can't skirt around it. But they get to skirt around it in the end because Rory gets to resit the exam anyway. I do. That's why I think like everyone is kind of wrong in the episode. Though it is nice that Lorelai stands up for Rory. She could have done it in a way that she does throw a bit of a fit in the headmaster's office, and it's a new school, and she represents Rory, and she calls the school a rat hole. Which like is so like I find that so funny, but I'm not a parent and I don't have like that responsibility to anyone.
The thing is, like, both Lorelai and Rory's rants are like, I can't be too mad at them because I think I'd probably do the same if I'm like over emotional, anxious. Stressed. Yeah, I'd probably do the same in both their situations. So I can't be too mad at them.
I think it's definitely relatable. Like when you have one of those days where nothing is going your way, but at the same time, the kind of logic of it, Rory not putting an alarm on and then being late to school and being on the phone to Lane and checking to see if like a deer is okay instead of just like,
Yeah.
you know, it
Carrying on
kind
to
of
school. Yeah.
it doesn't really add up, but it's sort of there to serve, like all these like little mishaps are there to serve as the plot device so she does miss the exam.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the kind of point of the episode. But it's not as in line with the quite strict Rory we know later on about like being on time and timekeeping and that kind of stuff.
Although, to be fair, maybe this kind of taught her a lesson and is what makes her so strict on timekeeping later.
Maybe. Did you see? I don't know if you would actually, because you never open my TikToks. I've sent you like 100 TikToks.
So sorry.
No, I've done the same to Evangelina as well. I send all of you 100 TikToks a day. No, this one was a.
It's because TikToks have sound, and you normally send them me when I'm like somewhere where I can't listen with sound. And also TikTok.
Okay, so I saw a TikTok where this girl was like close to tears.
Was it? Because that sounds like something I would do.
She was talking about how she just got yelled at because she was like doing a job interview or inquiring about a job, or she was at work. I don't know. It was something to do with a job, and she was inquiring about whether they accommodate for people with time blindness, and then these people yelled at her, and so she cried about it, and she basically was like, she said, a society where we don't accommodate for things like time blindness is certainly a society that we should be dismantling. And I was watching it and I was thinking, how are you going to dismantle anything if you can't be on time? But like I have, you know, it was coming from the perspective of like, yeah, she had ADHD and I have ADHD as well. But unfortunately, like society isn't going to accommodate for time blindness because because that is something that could be easily used as an excuse.
Yeah.
Instead, you have to accommodate society by just like setting alarms. Like recently, I've just been actually scheduling stuff in my phone and getting like little reminders sent to me. And it's helping so fucking much, you know? It requires a little bit of organization on my end and then it saves me a headache.
Yeah. Well, like I wouldn't say I have time blindness, but I definitely had issues with like timekeeping in mornings and like early mornings and stuff like that. So I just got myself a job where I don't have to do early mornings.
Oh yeah, that too. Like I wouldn't be able to. Well, actually, when I think
about
it,
it's not asking other people to accommodate me. It's changing what I need so that it matches my skills. Does that make sense?
And when you have to adapt, you also just do. Like when I was working at the other job, it was a 9 a.m. start. Sometimes that meant, you know, it was usually a 20-minute walk to work from my flat to the place. Usually that meant I would roll out of bed 30 minutes before and quickly brush my hair and then walk to work. But I would do that to be there on time, like on time or as close to. I couldn't be like, no, actually, can you accommodate me being 30 minutes late? Because I'd have to open this shop. So if I don't get there in time, it's not getting open.
Yeah.
You know, it was just it was on one, like this girl was getting clowned in her comment section as well. And on one hand, like I felt a little bit bad for all the clowning, but on the other hand, it's like, but how entitled are you? Yeah. You know, a lot of the world ain't gonna change overnight.
Yeah. I think also like what job was she applying for? If it is like customer service or customer facing, then yeah, you want to be on time. But if it's something like an office job, then I can see if she'd want to inquire about like flexible hours and stuff like that.
Offices can be quite flexible. I mean, I don't know that as a general statement, but I've noticed that like since the pandemic, places have been a little bit more flexible.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I used to have issues with my bus in the mornings when I lived in Oxford. And my bus to work, it was only once every hour. And it was a 50-minute bus and it was just like a nightmare. It was constantly late. So my boss gave me flexi time. So if I got in late in the mornings, I could just work later in the evenings.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be an issue. Or I could just take a little less time on my lunch break and work through that way and stuff like that. And yeah, it made sense, didn't it, baby? You're getting hungry.
People said in this comment section, funny how it's time blindness when you need to get somewhere, but then when you guys are clocking out, like it's on the dot. I was like the comment section. It was brutal and savage, but I was like low key agreeing with a lot of it. And like I had time blindness myself, you know, like if I go on TikTok and then look at a clock an hour would have gone by and I've not done anything. So
yeah. It's like Kyra playing with ball. She sits down and then suddenly it's 5 hours later and she's like, oh, time for tea.
and that's all for today's episode, looking at the 4th episode of Gilmore Girls. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Let us know what you think of this of the episode as well. What do you think? Are you team Charleston or team Lorelai? Or are you team Max? Are you team Suki or team Risotto?
I really enjoyed this episode. I felt like we rambled a bit, but I think it's fun.
I think people like it when we ramble though. I don't know, but
I hope so.
I like it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Make sure that you check me out on Spotify and iTunes. It could be 5 stars on Spotify. I make new podcasts whenever I feel like it, and we will see you all next time. Bye.